Action.
Raging Review.
The Raging Cajuns will be a source of pride for this university, for the alumni, fans, and donors as we achieve success in the classroom, in the competitive arena, and in the community.
It's about to get really fun.
We're looking for dudes that will stand up. Well, Coach, let me tell you today, I'm here and I'm ready to stand up. And I challenge you, Raging Cajun Nation, to stand up with us. Stand up with us. Let's lock hand in hand and let's walk through the gates of Omaha.
Hey, I love y'all boys. Let's grind every day starting today. Let's do it. Y'all ready? Alert! Ready? Who's your team ready? Who's your team ready? Yes, sir.
I got one thing to say right here. Cajuns win!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into a morning edition of the Rage and Review podcast. Nick and Lane in. If Nick knew how to work the board, that wouldn't have happened. Nick and Lane in this morning, a special edition of the Rage and Review podcast. And yeah, excited to be here, Lane. I don't have a whole lot to say right now, except that we were able to get Trojans baseball head coach Skylar Meade to come in and preview his team and what to look forward to this weekend. Lane, you guys did a bang-up job yesterday. Before we get into it, what do you think of the interview overall?
I thought it was a great interview. Coach Meade, as they call him, Skip, taught us a lot about his program and how far they've come along in the 4 years that he's been there. And I hope y'all are looking forward to it.
All right. Well, we are not going to wait any longer. I just want to say this is all Diet Coke this morning. I don't drink a whole lot of so if you see me drinking from this later, just know, even though it's 10 o'clock in the morning, I am drinking straight Diet Coke. I'm not a big coffee fan, man, unless it has all that sweet shaws in it. That's my thing. So that's just a note. We'll get what's that?
I put some stuff in my coffee too. So
I ain't going there. It's too early for that, man. Yeah, your liver is a lot younger than mine, so maybe you can deal with that. Yeah. Let's get to the interview. We'll wrap up after that, and we'll come back, Lane, and talk about it. But appreciate the great job you did. And here it is, head coach of the Troy Trojans, Skylar Meade.
All right, Cajun Nation, we're here today with Troy baseball head coach, Coach Skylar Meade. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm fantastic. You guys?
We're good. We're good. I'll admit, I know you kind of had a rough outing last night against Jacksonville State, but we had a game against Southern, and sometimes of all people as a head coach that the term "that's baseball" rings true. And last night for us, we came off with a close win, but really at the end of the day, you could just say that's baseball. I mean, we had so many hit. How many hit batters did we have? It was like what, 13 or 14 or something like that.
I'm not sure what the final number was, but I can tell you between the two teams, there were 33 free base runners.
Yes.
Which is insane.
Yeah. And it took like one or two timely hits to get us over the top. So after last night, it was like, whoo, okay, let's brush that one off and let's get ready for of course, your team, the Troy Trojans. Coach, let's talk a little bit about yourself, of course, to our listeners. Coach Skylar Meade, you're in your fourth season as Troy head baseball coach. You have a very outstanding record of 122-72 up until this point. All three of your seasons, I believe you've won 30 games or more. You went to a regional in 2023. So you've really gotten this Troy team going. And also you're a top 25 baseball program right now. So off to a decent start. But, Coach, before your time at Troy, give our audience a little bit of background, because you experienced the pinnacle of college baseball when you went to the 2007 College World Series as a player for your hometown team, the Louisville Cardinals. You spent time as an assistant in the OVC, the Big Ten, and most recently the SEC, serving as a pitching coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks. Of course, another very rich, storied baseball program. But while at South Carolina, you helped 14 pitchers get drafted in 4 years. Talk a little bit about that experience, which helped you lead to this job as head coach.
Yeah, I mean, although there's certainly a lot of memories starting 2007 and beyond, playing at Rosenblatt was certainly an amazing experience. Obviously myself and anyone else in the world wants to get back to Omaha. It will be different at not being at Rosenblatt, which I still think of. It makes you think of when you're a kid watching it on, CBS at 1:00 on Saturday, the championship and the Warren Morrises and Miami winning and the different things that pop into your head. But I was fortunate. I got into coaching. I got hired about 9 days out of playing at Eastern Illinois, and I spent 5 years there in the OVC, went to Middle Tennessee State for 2. It was actually in the Sun Belt in 2013 before Middle Tennessee had transferred over to Conference USA in 14. Spent my time at Michigan State after that. Awesome experience. The Big Ten, as I say, the Big Ten Nike money. And you go, oh, wow, this is a different world. Travel nice. And then certainly South Carolina, as you mentioned, was, you get your foray into the SEC. You learn what that thing's about. I think you take a lot of information about the level of player, the level of nutrition, the weight room aspect, the explosive nature of all the guys, which exists, but you get to see it on a day in, day out basis. And, I think what we tried to do the moment I was fortunate enough to be hired here in July of 21 was we're trying to create an SEC team. And I say that with all due respect to you. I mean, you guys know it. You cover it. I mean, the Sun Belt's incredible, and the ACC is incredible. Big 12 is great. Like, there's so many good leagues, but we'd be disingenuous if we didn't say that the SEC deserves its flowers. And so we want our team to look like that. What does that mean? Well, that means you got to be able to strike dudes out. You got to have stuff. You got to hit home runs. You got to be explosive. A lot of that comes from the talent that you procure, but it also comes from what you do from a weight room perspective. And so we've tried to be cutting edge of that. And we're not a perfect program. We got a lot of things to do to get to the goals in which we strive. But I think we've certainly made at least an impact, or at least somewhat of an impact in what we've done, and especially the progression of it. Our first year winning 32 games with, a team that we certainly had some flaws, but we just were tough and found a way. And then you win 40 and you're in a regional and you're on the precipice of more that year. And last year getting ranked late, and obviously we didn't end up getting the nod to go. You win one more game or something, you're in there. And, I'm not, this podcast is not about debating should we have been in or not last year, but, we were right there. It's just unfortunate. And then coming in this year and being preseason ranked, I think does show obviously a high level of respect. And I think we've earned that by our play. I don't think it's any sort of fluke by any means. But we're also 17 games in. We're 30% of the season in, and there's a million, high level games to go the rest of the year. And obviously we'll start off conference going down there and matching up with the Cajuns on Friday night.
Troy has seen his share of success on the diamond since joining the Sun Belt in 2005, and a beautiful ballpark, ideal geographical location for recruiting purposes. When you were hired to take over as head coach, what was the reception like in Troy, and why was the job enticing for you personally?
Well, baseball is just so important. You guys are at a place where how fanfare and investment, what it does. While that might sound like cliche a bit, it's the truth. People love baseball here. When I go to Publix, people know who myself, our players are. Hey, we were at the game last night. We watched the game. Hey, nice job. Hey, what happened there in the eighth? Like, they know what's going on, and that's important. Obviously, the new stadium that was a big part of when I got hired. I knew it was coming along. I'm kind of sitting right now overlooking all the new things in our office here at Riddle Pace. And I have an incredible AD and his team, associate AD, Brent Jones, Kyle George, who I work most hand in hand with. We have a chancellor, Dr. Jack Hawkins, who's incredibly invested in us being an elite baseball program. So we're given the things here to do well. And then, you speak of where we're located. Look, we're 2 hours from the ocean. Troy is warm, right? Like, we recruit all over. Now, that does not mean we just recruit South. I mean, we have half the country on our roster, and that doesn't even include Australian kid who's batting 3-hole. We have Canadians. We've gone everywhere to get players, but I think Troy can be a destination for guys because of the warm weather, the facility, the investment. We are good. Like, I don't mean that in any sort of like over the top way. We're good. You're going to play high level baseball. And you're going to play in a great top 4, top 5 conference. You get to go play on the road in conference at the Louisianas, who has amazing fans, Coastal, Southern Miss, a unique place such as Texas State. Georgia Southern has huge fanfare. You can go on and on down the list. South Alabama, amazing history. We could continue in what this league has done, and then even teams that we've added that have rich history. So we think we can be really enticing. And then, what we try to do from a development standpoint, I think it does speak for itself, whether that be position players or pitchers. Obviously, I lean and do the pitchers still to this day. 18 years in, I still coach the pitchers every single day and haven't ever missed a throw, never missed a bullpen. But, our guys have gotten better. And I think any kid that wants to make a long-term decision out of high school, I think we have a chance. But also in this day and age with the portal, we've had a lot of success with some kids that say, hey, look, I got to be better. I got to get the right opportunity, and I need to develop so I can be a pro. And you look at a couple guys that have made the decision to come here over the last couple of years. You look at the Cleat Hartsogs, the Jay Dills, Zach Fruit, Benny Thompson, all are playing. Or Jay Dill's still with us, but will play in pro ball. These are guys that have made huge gains. Adam Falinsky on our team now, throwing the ball 97 miles an hour. Zach Fruit threw in a big league game yesterday, was 97-100 against the Yankees, got the save, went 3 innings, 5 Ks. Guy might pitch in the big leagues this year. And was a career 7.80 ERA before he got to us. So we think that, all those things said, we can be a place that can get the best players. And in the end, it's still about Jimmys and Joes. You got to have good players and you got to have a great culture. And we've been lucky enough to have both of those things.
I think one benefit of having programs in the South is that it's so talent rich. And I know that goes a long way in recruiting. Coach, I want to first apologize for sounding like a chain smoked a pack of Newports before we jumped on. Your boy's going through it right now. So sorry to the audience, but, it's my Jordan flu game. I'm going to push through. You mentioned the league, and obviously all of the teams in this league are very pro Sunbelt Conference, and as we should, like you mentioned, top 5 RPI league the last few. We've hosted regionals. We've gotten teams through to super regionals. It's a good league regardless. I mean, half the league is probably going to finish in the top 100 to 150 RPI. Talk to me a little bit about your perception of the league from the outside. I know you were here with Middle Tennessee. I thought the league was strong back then. You had your WKUs, you had your Cajuns, and Middle Tennessee was good back then too. I think that this Sunbelt Conference is just a notch above that. What has been your experience coming back to the Sunbelt League and then having to travel and host quality team after quality team throughout league play? Has it changed at all? Do you have a more conscientious respect for the league? Just a little bit about that, please.
It's a good question. I do think this new version, this 2025 version over the maybe 2013 version, if you will, just for me specifically, it's just so deep. There's no breaks. I think the coaches that are in this league are so elite. There's been more investment and across the board. And I also think too, an underspoken part that's a little bit different with the expansion of the way the league is, there's still some more difficulties in travel, which makes going on the road more difficult. Look, I understand back in the day, you could still go down to FAU and FIU, but at least you kind of like hopped on a plane. You're right there. Now you get some like trips that, hey, do I have to bus this? I can't just fly into there. Like there's some things that are a little more difficult than one may imagine. And so, I just think this version, we've expanded. You go all the way into Texas, but you go all the way into Virginia. You kind of hit that whole corridor of the South, as you aforementioned. And so I think it's the highest version that this league has ever been. And I remember the statistic I believe it was last year. You look at the end, there's 11 teams. In the top 11 teams were in the top 110, and the 10 teams that were in the tournament were all top 100 RPI. And so, what that also does, it gives buffer, it protects you, right? Like we should never be a league where a quote unquote random loss kills you, right? Like the reason the SEC is always in a good spot is, and now they're 16 teams, but when there were 14 teams, like the lowest of the teams was like a 60 RPI. Like you just play and win, and you get to your 13 wins in the league and you got a shot, you get to 14, you feel really good. You get to 15, you throw a parade, you're in the NCAA tournament. Yay, we win. But you're protected in there. And I think sometimes like what gets forgotten a little bit is, and I'm just speaking to let's use the SEC example and what it does for RPI. It's like the old NCAA tournament example. Like if two teams play, somebody's going to win. So somebody's going to juice up. It's you know what I'm saying? And so it's like, but if you have a league where maybe you got a couple 230 RPIs, but then you have like a bunch of 290 RPIs, well, eventually randomness of baseball, something's going to happen. And then you can end up crushing yourself. When everybody's good, all it does is the cream rises to the top, and it puts more teams in a position to be there come late May.
The real magic of SEC scheduling is the self-fulfilling prophecy of the high RPI, but I digress because that's a whole other podcast. In year 4, have you developed an affinity for a specific road trip? Do you like one over maybe all the rest? I'm curious about what the coaches think about going on the road. What's your most fun trip?
It's I don't know. It can't be judged till the trip's over. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
My life is literally predicated on winning and losing. That being said, I do love going on the road. Look, we played porous baseball last night and got, which does happen in this sport. But to me, and this was a big thing for us starting in 2023 because we felt like we had the talent. We talked about Troy's always been good at home historically. We need to be good on the road. We need to win 60% of our games. We won 60% of our games in 2023. Therefore, we're an NCAA tournament team. Last year, we had the fourth most wins in the country on the road. Okay. Was that enough in the end? No, I guess that's the way it works, but we did the things necessary. I love what going on the road does. And we try to give our guys different experiences. But in our league, I think you love the experiences of the high level crowds and the atmospheres that, certain teams provide. Obviously Southern Miss does their deal, what you guys in Louisiana do. But I know you guys have fun. I always think of it like on the trip, I'm like, all right, what's going to be the smoothest trip? Which one's going to be the best food on the way down? Where am I going to have the best traveling down to it? Now, I will say, I know that the Cajuns always feed us well. I'm not going to sit here and say that the jambalaya world is my favorite thing that there is. I'd rather probably have a piece of chicken and some rice, but
we have that. We've got variety.
Well, that's what I hear this year. I was given some pre-menu information the other day. So I started to get a little bit more juiced up, but to me, I do think, and I know I'm sort of dodging the question, but it's hard to say like what's a favorite, but I love going on the road. I would rather win a road game than win a home game any day of the week. And I really mean that. I think there's something special, that feeling of getting back on the bus with the guys. And, for us a couple weeks ago when we went to Starkville and beat Mississippi State, who was 15th at the time. And it was a 4.5-hour bus ride back. It was supposed to be 4, but our bus driver had not quite the lead foot, unfortunately. And so we were on that bus for a long time, but every minute of it was awesome. As tired as you were, and we had to prepare for a really good UAB team the next day. We got our computers going, but you're having a blast with the coaches, the players, the support staff. To me, that's the most fun part about college baseball is winning and then getting to get back on that bus with the guys. And so hopefully we get to do that a lot of times this year. We'll see what fate has in store for us, but I very much look forward to road trips, probably more than home games, to be honest with you.
We found out here first, Coach Skylar Meade has a future in politics after his coaching career is over. Nice dodge.
Thank you.
Listen, we talked about a little bit of the expectations coming into the season, and I'm just curious about, have you been satisfied with the way that your club has reacted to those high expectations? Obviously, getting picked to win the belt it's a preseason thing, and a lot of it is for conversation fodder. We understand that, but you're obviously highly thought of in the league. Does that go to the guys' heads from time to time? And particular for this year, are you happy with how they've kind of responded?
I'm going to answer this two ways. It's interesting. You look at our program and, we've gotten a lot of fanfare beginning in 23 when we started out 11-0 and, kind of started making impact. And we had some guys that were doing some pretty unique things on a national scale. And you go through that season and articles are written and it's like the first foray for our guys into I don't mean celebrity, but you're getting information out. D1 Baseball does articles, all these things started to happen. And so we had to learn to handle it. And then we ended up having a little bump in the road, but then we ended up handling it better as it went. And boom, you're playing into June. Last year, very similar, more expectations. We're just okay for a little bit. Finally had some, changes you make within. The articles were a little less for a little bit. And then boom, now we're like the most popular team in the country. We've won 8 in a row, 5 in a row over rank. Like, we had to deal with that. And I don't think that it'd be revisionist history to say some of the games that we lost late in the year, that one game or that one inning or that one pitch that maybe prevented us from playing June baseball, I don't know if it necessarily went to our heads. I think we just didn't handle some moments well. And then going into this year, I mean, this has been a lot. I mean, Troy's never had a team ranked in the top 25 in any sport in the Division I era ever. Not one. This is the first time it's ever happened. So it is a big deal. I'd be disingenuous to say, oh, it's nothing. It doesn't matter. Like, no, it does matter because this is entertainment. We need fans. There's a reason we've sold the most season tickets ever. There's a reason we've, blown away our numbers in our RBI club because people are excited. And me as, obviously the face of this thing, I'm not going to run from that. I never do. And I know that can put a bullseye on you, but we as Coach McDonald, my coach at Louisville, I went back for an event in 2017, and I remember him giving the Run to the Roar speech. And if you ever have heard the Run to the Roar, I mean, like, some people hear the lion and they run away. Like, some people hear the lion, they go to it. We're going to go right to it. I understand what that means, but if we want to be the best program in the country, if we want to win a national championship, we have to aspire and think that way. And that's how we've been since July 15th of 2021. So that's not going to change. And you have to have an elite level of confidence from the top all the way through your program if you want to aspire to do things that maybe are above what you should do. Okay. And so we're not going to run from that. And I think our guys have been solid. If you sat here and said, all right, let's assess at the 30% mark. You're 13-4, your RPI is 25. You've won an SEC road game. You played really well. You've had one clunker. Would you sign up for it? You'd be like, yeah. I'd love to be 17-0. Everybody would. That's not how – this is baseball. It's like I had to explain to my 6-year-old when he was crying when we lost a game the other day that he said, we can't win a championship. It's over. We can't. No, it's baseball. Like, this happens. We'll be fine. We're awesome. So we run to that. And I think our guys have embraced that. It doesn't mean you don't have to give them, constant reminders of what kind of shot we're getting from people. Because guess what? We have been getting everybody's best shot. I do believe that. I felt a different energy in these opposing dugouts. Sometimes it's good energy. Sometimes it's like, okay, I don't know what's wrong with these kids. But in the end, like, that's going to happen. And we cannot be scared of that. If you're scared of that, then you're not a real competitor. If you're not a real competitor, you don't survive in our program. Just like, and I think the world of what Coach Deggs does. I really do. And he's been really good to me. I've known him for a long time, certainly, only being a head coach with him peer-to-peer, if you will, since 2022. But I know that his players are not scared, right? They may not perform in a game, but the players are not scared. And that's a goal that we aspire to have, is that we go out there every time and we give our best shot, and the chips are going to fall the way they're supposed to. But we're always going to be ready to play.
Coach, I wanted to add to that real quick before we move on. So, you've talked about how you've come into Troy and you've done your best to change the perception of the program with success. You've talked about how the fans have embraced the program and the success that you've had. You've talked about how your donor club, the RBI club, I believe you said it's called, there's more members. But I wanted to ask, as a whole in the state of Alabama, right? You've got Auburn, you've got Alabama, you've got UAB, you've got Jacksonville State, you've got South Alabama, you've got a lot of teams in the state that are very competitive. And how and I say that because in Louisiana, I mean, we had tons of good college baseball down here. Obviously, we have us, we've got Tulane, we've got LSU, we've got Louisiana Tech. How have you been able to, whether it's recruiting or perception as a head coach in the state of Alabama, try to be that program in the state? Like, what are some of the things that you've been able to do to change that perception of Troy within the state of Alabama against the Auburns and the Alabamas and the South Alabamas?
I think, look, it's going to be hard. A lot of kids, not a lot, probably all kids in the state grow up thinking about going to one of those two schools, Alabama and Auburn. There's great players at Samford, UAB, South Alabama, Troy historically, Alabama State. I could go, up and down the list. But I think what we've done is we're not afraid to put ourselves out there. You know, we're not afraid. We invite anybody and everybody in. I'm not. I know we're doing this on a podcast, but like I'm inviting you guys in. Like this is awesome to be on here. I understand that there can be some pushback on here, but all we're doing is promoting our product, right? We don't sit here. I don't come on this and go, "Hey, we're better than everybody," and look at us. That's not what we do. We are just promoting our culture, what we do, and our brand. And if your brand is always good, then you got a chance to get the next great player. You're going to have the next agent say, "Hey, my guy should come to you because you can help, get him right." You're going to have the next high school coach call and go, "Hey, this guy, he is your kind of guy. I've seen how you play. I know that he would be awesome for you." If we're constantly out there and we're in the mix and we're not afraid of handling the quote limelight, then we think those things will happen. That's why, we go, and anytime myself or our staff has the opportunity to speak, we never say no. We have an opportunity to speak on our program. We're not going to say no. Our players, we let media in here left and right, just as we've got on this podcast. I mean, Brooks Bryan's on the face of D1 baseball, right? I think the headline from Mark Etheridge is from unsung hero to superstar, or Captain America is what they're calling him playing with Team USA. I haven't got to read the article yet. I just saw the header. But like, we want our guys to be talked about, right? We want to make sure that the perception is that you can come to Troy, you can be a superstar nationally, right? Everyone in the world knew who Shane Lewis was. Everyone knows who Brooks Bryan is. A lot of people knew who Zach Fruit was. Noah Manning, our closer. Like you start going through, and Steve Meyer, is viral for his 3-0 home run against Mississippi State. Like the video had like 128,000 views. And I'm not trying to be like Twitter guy, but like that's a lot of eyeballs. And we want people to know that you come to Troy, you're going to be promoted as the superstar that you are. And if guys feel that and they realize that they don't have to go to LSU or Texas A&M or Miss State to get that, then that's a victory for us. And so we're going to do that, and we'll take the bullseye. Just as you asked about how do we handle it, like you can't be scared of that, right? Everybody talks about you want to be the best, and everybody wanted to play Michael Jordan in one-on-one, right? Like we want to go against the best, whoever that is, and so we got to promote our product as such.
Coach, the answer seems obvious, but comment on the ability to play Power 4 schools in midweek games and how it keeps college baseball so compelling throughout the year.
Well, it's wild. You look across the country, not just us. You go anywhere, man. There's just so many good players. I think the game's in a really good place. The game's never been older. I don't know the numbers this year on college baseball. I started seeing some of the numbers on college basketball that came out for an example, just how old they are. I mean, look at Auburn's starting lineup in college basketball, 23.2. I mean, it's insane. But there's just good players. And I know I don't mean this from a tampering perspective, so no one use my words, but you play every team you play, you go, "Oh man, I'd love that guy on our team." And I mean that it's just complimentary. And I'm sure that when you play the SEC teams, they do the same thing. You just hope that they just don't find a way to talk to your guys. But I just think that the game's older. I think that you've seen this little renaissance too. I feel like the popularity of baseball over the last 10 years, and I speak to this from a recruiting perspective, what I see in the summers going all around the country to see players. I do think that baseball is on this little bit of an uptick, and the money in professional baseball has not gone down. The TV deals have not gone down. I think the game's in a really good place. And so, as it pertains to playing, the quote Power 4 teams and those midweeks, I think it's a great opportunity for all of us. But those teams don't get hurt now by playing teams that are, in these quote unquote mid-major leagues. You play us, you're playing a top 25 RPI team. You play Louisiana, you're playing a big dog. You play South Alabama last night, blows out Ole Miss. That loss isn't going to hurt Ole Miss. Ole Miss is great. Like, they'll be fine. Great. Coach Calvi did an amazing job. Their boys were prepared to play, and they got a win last night. And Texas State beat Texas A&M. That loss is not going to hurt them. Like, I could go up and down the list. So it's good because you get challenged. But if you're one of those teams, you also get to probably see some different styles that you may see in June. And I think that there's a lot of importance to that as well.
Skip, let's talk a little bit about offense. We haven't focused on your sometimes at points in the season extremely explosive offense. To give the audience some context, Trojans are hitting 308 as a team, a 948 OPS, a tick under 500 slug as a team. You've taken 122 base on balls and only struck out 135 times. And to kind of break it down, that's about a strikeout per 9. You hit 21 home runs as a team. Do you think that you're where you should be as an offense at this point in the season? You talked about a third of the way. And kind of just remind the fans what they can expect to see at the Dish from the Trojans this weekend.
Well, I feel really good about our offense. Obviously, numbers are numbers, but we got explosive guys. I think we can do some dynamic things. I know a lot of people know us for our amount of left-handed hitters we have. I think we bring a lot of different things to the table, and our guys are so bought in. Ben Wolgamont, my associate head coach, who runs our offense, I think the numbers since we've been here to Troy. The progression's been pretty insane. I just make sure our guys are in a good headspace, and I tell them good job, or I tell them don't worry about it. I don't want to mess with those guys. We try to keep one voice for our offense, and Ben is that voice. But, I think our guys are just bought in systematically to, our messaging and our ways of, while it may sound very simple, it's like everything we do is about how do we maximize our run output, right? And so you got to be diversified. You got to be able to take HBPs. You got to be able to walk. You got to be able to, hit and run at times. You got to be able to bunt. You got to be able to hit the ball out of the park sometimes. You got to do a lot of different things. You got to base run well, which we've done a little bit better of recently. And so, what you will see, you'll probably see a lot of left-handed hitters, and you'll see some really big, strong, explosive dudes. Obviously, I hope that they perform explosively, which we've done most of our games. But I think that's what you're going to see, and that our goal is for you to always see that. I think our team, we've certainly, if you really go through the last 3 years, you kind of go, oh, okay, I know what the Troy team looks like. We pass a certain eye test to the fan, to the fan on TV, and with that, we hope that is certainly impactful in what it does to the opposing team.
Coach, you talked a good bit about the offense, but talk about the starting rotation and what you expect for this weekend.
Yeah, I've been, for the most part, we've obviously thrown the ball very well. I think we have I don't know the updated, I know going into yesterday, fewest walks in the league, and we certainly got a lot of power arms. Gary Gaines is a tremendous arm and has been one for a long time. The guy that we've been throwing game ones, he's up to 95. Just a very competitive kid. Noah Edders, Bradley transfer, throws the baseball up to 96, has been our game 2 guy. And then, we got a lefty on Sunday, Drew Nelson, who has been throwing. And obviously in our midweeks, we've been throwing a kid, Adam Falinsky, that's 97 miles an hour. And we got multiple guys out of the bullpen throwing the ball 95 plus. And, we got some left-handers. And I like our arms. I think we all get greedy. In the end, you need to have 10 really good arms. It's nice to have – you love to have 15, you love to have 16, and maybe some guys, fix some things as the year goes. But in the end, we need to have really 10 dudes. And I think that as it goes, and then we may not, I have no idea how we'll pitch Friday or beyond, but I think we have the pieces that when they're all at their apex, I think we can really stuff some people. And we've been able to do that most of the time. Like anybody, you got some guys down there at the second part, if you will, of your staff that some have taken advantage of opportunities, some have not. But it's also early, and things change and evolve. Heck, I've seen it a lot of times with Louisiana. And I'm not just saying that because we're on here with you guys. I've seen some guys that weren't a guy for them whatsoever early, and they end up being a guy late. So things are going to happen. That's why you have to continue to work and strive to get better each and every day, which is a huge part of our culture. Because there's going to be guys that are quote unquote, outside of it or not in the mix right now that will end up being pivotal parts of what we hope is a long, long season.
So Skip, you talked about, I'm sure you've talked with your coaching staff already about a scouting report for the Cajuns coming up this weekend. I'm sure you've gone down the list of roster and you've done the analytics and the stats and who to look out for, but I'm sure you've noticed that, the Cajuns right now, unfortunately, we're a little bruised up. We got some players that have had some injuries, some key players that are battling some scars. But talk a little bit about your team health-wise. I mean, I know, you're 17 games in of a 56 or more game schedule, of course. It's a grind, but at this point of the season, how's the overall health of your team, and how have you been able to strategize based on that?
Yeah, we've been really, healthy for the most part. Shane Lewis got a little bit nicked up the other day. I think we'll be able to get him back, but just a high effort play in the outfield that he kind of dinged himself up a little bit, but feel really optimistic about him. But knock on wood, we've been good. It's funny. The only thing that we've had like I know, Josh, you were saying it, but we've had rash of sickness. COVID clearly is back. We've been, hit with a couple runs of that. We had like 23 guys of our 40 get the flu in late January and early February, which obviously I hope there's a blessing that it happened at that time. But, we had like 4 guys out for sickness yesterday. Not that impacted our game. I don't mean that, but just we've actually had a run of sickness. But the bodies are feeling pretty good. We just got to get some guys to they need to have a little bit more vitamin C in their life, I think.
Skip, you talked a little bit about your offense and how good they are in the starting rotation. How good can Troy be in 2025? And realistically, what's your ceiling for this year?
I wouldn't put a ceiling on us. I think that we can be one of the best teams in college baseball when we're playing at our best and we have all of our bullets going. If you got experience starting pitching, if you got some lefties, if you got stuff at the back end of a game, which we do. If you got a lot of left-handed hitters, you got guys that can knock it out of the park. You got some guys that can handle the bat. I think the biggest thing for us is we have to play good defense. We didn't play good defense in our last couple games, and that's annoying. That's problematic. It makes you nauseated as a coach from time to time. But we got to play better defense. But if we do that, I think the teams that are going to beat us is us. Baseball, you're going to get got, and there's great teams that we play the rest of the way. We're going to lose games. Like that's just the unfortunate, just as I explained to my 6-year-old. But I don't think that there's a ceiling for us. I really believe that. I think our guys are too talented. I think they're too passionate about this team and the camaraderie that's within this team. But what I think will be the telltale of not just us, but anyone is like, all right, when you have that moment of problem or issue, and I don't mean like off the field, I mean like, hey, we're just not playing good baseball. How good can this team internally reset? How good is the leadership of the players? That does not mean that my leadership is going to be perfect every second, right? We try our best as coaches. We're ourselves. We're genuine ourselves, but sometimes you got to kind of rattle the cage a little bit. When that happens, how are you going to handle that? Are you going to wilt? Are you going to question the things that you've worked so hard for such a long time on, or are you going to be able to rebound? And so, I hope that obviously we only have maybe one of those, right? Some teams have multiple as you go through the course of a year. My hope is when we have that little, moment where you're on the bridge and you're figuring it out, our guys can handle it. But I feel confident that they will, because I know what kind of internal leadership we have amongst kind of our, top flight guys that have been in that locker room for a couple years.
Coach, last one from me. And by the way, thank you so much for your time. This has been a lot of fun. At our roots, we're a fan podcast. We are fans, and what fans love to do is blame umpires. So I'm going to ask you an umpire question.
If you saw our game last night, you might want to ask me about one in the 5th. But
hey, man, we've had our share of ugliness, especially when we went out west to play in a Big West game. Anyway, I won't go down that road. But the coaches voted in the league to move to 3 umpires a few years ago. I understand it was budget cuts, and COVID really did a number on a lot of those things. I want to know if we can count on you to vote yes on going back to 4 umpires so we can fix our referee, umpire, official problem in this conference for good.
Yeah, I know that's been a big thing, not just, I think for all of us, that's what we all want as coaches. The only issue, and look, it's really hard. Umpiring, officiating, all those things are tough. I don't care what the sport is. It's not easy. And look, myself included, at times we could probably lose our minds less, but we're all competitive and we don't want to be wronged. We just want things to be on the 50-50, but it's humans. I give a great stat. I'm a big hoops guy, so pardon me on this, but in college basketball, this is about 4 years ago, this statistic, but block charge calls, right? Now they've changed the rule in that. So there's like no such thing as that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But they used to track this block charge calls, the pure 50-50, like could go either way. It would go to the home team in college basketball 72% of the time. Now, why do we think that is? We know why that is.
Well,
You're
it's
in an
subjective.
arena.
Yeah.
It's subjective. It's human nature. I get it. I totally get it. Guess what? I'd probably do the same thing in that quick, instantaneous, boom, I got to make this call. But where I have problems sometimes, and I just think this part could be done a little bit better, we just got to make sure when we have the video, we have the review, we have most places have really good reviews. We have to be confident enough at times to just make the right call. That's the only thing that I ever have an issue with. We always try to keep something to stand. And then, you as a coach, you look back and you're like, my goodness, I'm baffled by this. That's the only thing. It's a hard game. And, I will tell you the numbers on the guys in our league have continued to increase. Paul Gillier, who runs all of the umpires, does such a tremendous job. Heck, I was on the phone with him last week. I was calling for a guy that coached with us who's coaching at another place now. He's like, hey, how does this rule work? I called Paul Gillier. He answered in 2 seconds, gave me the information, and then gave me some advice for some things too, which I listened to intently because that guy, Paul's the best, and his umpires do a great job. And we have a lot of really, really good ones. But I think it can be tough. There's certainly problems that can happen in the 3-man swing, deal. And the game's it's hard, man. These guys throw hard. They throw pitches in zones that can be difficult. The catchers create such a mirage on where pitches actually go. Things are so bang out there in the field. I mean, it is really, really tough. I don't envy the job that they do, but where we are fortunate, I really mean this. I'm not saying this just to politic. I can politic, but we actually have so many good guys in our league that it makes it better when you have a question, you can go out and, I know Eric Gaucher does a lot of SEC games now, but Eric's been around a lot, and you can go, Eric, tell me what goes on here. And he's like, man, this is what I saw and this is what I got. And you're like, okay, thanks, man. You're the man. That's how you want it to be. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to get mad again this year. Coach Deggs is going to get mad. Coach Ostrander is going to get mad. Calvy's going to get mad. I get it. We're all going to get mad and things happen. But fortunately, they've made such an effort to make our league better and to have guys graded accordingly that I actually think we're in a tremendous spot. And I really, really mean that. And the numbers would echo that. Our numbers, and I'm speaking more to strike ball, but our numbers have gotten better and better every year, and they are right up there with the top leagues in the country. So I think that's a tremendous thing. I know fans, if a call goes a different way on Friday night, will not think the same thing down there in Cajun country. I totally get that. But trust me, we've all been there.
We'll scream at him. You'll hear a few, come on, Blue. That's our big thing. Come on, Blue. So you'll hear some of that from the dugout. It's kind of a Teague tradition. It's funny because I've noticed over the last couple of years with the evolution of TrackMan, and I know just about every school has to use some kind of TrackMan to do the analytics. But I've noticed that our umpires are more graded now on the TrackMan model, right? Like the strike zones and the way that they base the game is more off of, it's more like kind of a computer based IT side of things. There's been a lot of debate, whether it's amongst fans or coaches, that, sometimes you don't want to stray away from the traditional human error, I guess, where sometimes you may say, well, okay, the umpire missed the strike, but the TrackMan said this, so he's got to call strikes and balls a different way. Kind of what's your opinion about that, about how with the evolution of TrackMan and sort of the natural feel of baseball, do you feel like it's intertwined in a good or bad way? What's your point of view on that as we continue on with more tech and technology and things like that to judge the game of baseball?
It's interesting. I think at the professional level, with the amount of detail and the way that they can shift the zones per the hitter, I think it's incredibly relevant. And obviously these are the best of the best of the best of the best. So I think sometimes it's certain things are relative, right? If the zone is not, ebb and flowing with the body type of a guy. Like, is the call actually wrong or inaccurate? We all run into that. But at the same time, if it's a 12-1 game in the ninth inning, 2 outs, and there's like a fringe pitch, like, call strike, and I'm not saying that umpires are not. In fact, it's actually been, we've been very fortunate. That part of the game's been so good for us this year. But you're like, man, it's like, I got a call on here. I won't say his name. I'll protect him on this one. But guy that I coach with, he always used to say, good umpires call strikes. Like, no one gets mad when they're calling strikes. But I really do. I think it's been good because it keeps the things in the tunnel, right? The pitch that's way outside that, look, man, when I was in the Sun Belt in 2013, like, there'd be some 5 inches off calls, and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't believe, like, that doesn't happen anymore. These guys are too good. They're trained too well. They're too disciplined. Do I think that from time to time that a certain TrackMan may say a pitch on a certain guy, oh, that was a strike? It's like, I don't know if it is, because I don't know about the body type, but I think what it does for honing guys in for the eyes, you just see tremendous results. I mean, we have, and I'm sure this happens at Louisiana and everywhere else, but we'll have the umpires, some guys come in and do some of our games in the preseason to get themselves, calibrated. And you even see in those evolutions and maybe like a 7-8 inning scrimmage, like early on, they miss a couple. Hey, did I get it? They turn around. And then as they go, they start to, like, they're honed in, and these guys are they're really dialed, We always laugh. The one thing that's interesting, most of the time we don't have umpires in our scrimmages. And it's so crazy that when you umpire from out in the field, you realize it's like easier to actually umpire from in the field, looking in, and you actually know the pitch that's coming in. That's where I think it's so difficult for umpires. And I wouldn't want to get to this rabbit hole, but if they knew what pitch was coming, I don't know if those guys would ever miss, because you actually would have that ability. Oh, curveball's coming. Like, I'm going to see where it goes. I think that's the underspoken part about the difficulty of the job is you're back there, guys are throwing 100 miles an hour. You could get a foul tip in the neck, the head. You don't know what pitch is coming, and there's so much information out there. That's why I said I commend the guys. I really do. I know that I've yelled at a couple this year, and I feel bad about it after the fact, but it is not an easy job.
Skip, speaking of the rule changes and umpires, and we added the first base safety bag this year. What's your opinion on the rule changes you've seen in college baseball?
Absolutely love the safety bag. I used to play in a tournament in 1994 and 95 in Madison, Indiana, and they had the safety bag, and I played first, and I remember going, that's kind of cheesy. And now you look 30 years later, that's a heck of an idea. Will Sullivan, our first baseman back in 23, took a big collision and got dinged up pretty good on a ball that if you had the safety bag, it wouldn't have happened. I think it's a great idea. I'm glad that it was implemented. I didn't love the amount of money I had to pay to get it installed, but aside from that, I think it's tremendous. And so it's a good thing. I actually think at the collegiate level, this is just a small thing, but I know like in the big leagues, they're going probably more to the bigger bag for spacing. But I think at the college level, it's probably one of those things that adds a little buffer of protection that I think is very much a positive. So I'm all in on it. I think it's great. I think anything with the time clocks to speed up pace of play is great. It's been tremendous for our game. And in the end, we need to keep the consumer, if you can, under 3 hours. And I think a lot of games are that way. Don't get me wrong. There's sloppy games that take a long time, us included. But I think anything that makes it fast and makes it safe is a good thing.
Coach, last question. And again, thank you so much for spending your time with us today. So you talked about how you love getting on the bus and traveling with the guys. And you get that chance when you come down to Cajun country this weekend. I got to ask, right? We're known for our food. We're known for our culture. Anything you guys are going to be doing besides going to the ballpark? Any type of restaurants or any type of food you're looking forward to eating, or swamp tours or anything like that?
No, I will tell you, I'm very interested in the alligator crocodile world. I'm always enamored with that whole thing. I want to go down the Everglades one time and see that whole deal. But no, probably nothing too exciting off it. Anytime we get on a bus, I'm excited to find a Chipotle. I know that's not that has nothing to do with Cajun country, but when we travel, we make sure that we find a Chipotle to stop at, and I'll be doing that tomorrow. But no, we'll partake in some of the local food as we said. But it'll be a lot of business too, and certainly the guys will have time to do some things tomorrow night post practice and hang out and go around. And, of course you don't play till nighttime on Friday, but we try to give as many opportunities as we can for them to do some things with their families and all of that, as long as the timing and everything works out great. But no, nothing too exciting off the grid. That's one thing I think for me, and maybe when I get older and, I'm maybe a little more calm, because I don't really sit still very often. I'm sure you guys will make fun of me. I chase more foul balls than bat girls and ball boys because I don't really like to stand still. But, I think that, like, these road trips, it's like I don't really venture out around campuses. I kind of get used to the ballpark, the weight room, and my hotel room to do preparation. And so maybe when I'm 60 and I've chilled out a little bit, but right now I have not mastered that art.
Nothing wrong with that. Well, I'm sure I will say there's a lot of good food selection around here, around where you'll be staying and around the ballpark. So you won't have a problem making a choice there. But anyway, Coach, it has been a true pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. We look forward to a great matchup against your baseball team. You guys have a heck of a program down at Troy, and should be a lot of fun this weekend. And safe travels. See you this weekend.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you guys having me on. I appreciate all the things that go into, I'm sure, what you guys, do all the time, but also just promoting the game. Certainly you guys have a great product to promote there in Louisiana, what Coach Deggs has done, and the great players that they've had through there. But it's awesome. I hope to get on with you guys again down the road. And this was a blast.
All right, Lane, how cool is that, man? Head coach of the Troy Trojans baseball team, Skylar Meade. Man, it's hard. We'll say it every week. I know we've said it over the past few weeks. We've really been concentrating on getting other coaches on, but it's so hard to hate a program and hate a team when their coach is so damn nice.
Yeah, he was nice to talk to. He had a lot of knowledge about the game in general and about his team, obviously. But being able to interview an opposing coach right before the series is always cool.
Yeah, even
sure.
Cloverleaf Mall giving us some props, and those guys just hammered us. He just hammered us for losing to McNeese. Look, yo, USM people got to get this together, man. We don't shit talk other teams losing out of conference. Now in conference it's free reign, but
yeah.
I mean, nobody was joking about your 10-run loss to freaking Mississippi State the other night. So shut up. But appreciate the comments from Cloverleaf Mall. A couple things that stood out to me on Coach Meade is, one, Chipotle, really? That's the best you can do? Like that's your go-to on road trips? That's weird. Still like the guy, but that's still weird. But him talking about doing the podcast to promote the program, if they have the opportunity to speak, they will take it every time. The players won't say no. He'll give them access as well. And the quote was, if you don't give us access and you don't take advantage of that, you don't get coverage and you don't get noticed. And I think that's the truth. When you have outlets like ours that will give you some time on screen, that only helps to further build your brand, which is a word he used, brand. So really appreciate him thinking through that. And last thing I'll say is, love hearing him say we can't be scared and we have to promote our program as we're not scared. So he's not scared on coming on with us. And it seems like he had a fun time, Lane, and it seems like you did too. I think Lane is checked out. Lane is taking a nap. All right, boys and girls. Well, that will do it for today's episode. Again, special episode with Coach Skylar Meade. We will regroup. I think we might even put in a poll, because we usually do Thursday nights before home games, but I'm thinking we had a lot of fun on that pregame show at 4:00 last Friday. And maybe if we go ahead and do that again, maybe we start doing pregame for baseball. I don't know, Lane. Maybe we'll have to put out a poll to see what people prefer, but I like the 4 o'clock before a game thing. That's been a lot of fun. We will certainly come back either tonight or tomorrow once we decide that, and talk about our week, which was not great, and then the upcoming series as well. What to expect from Troy, also softball, and all that good stuff. For Lane, who is frozen on the stream, Nick, we'll talk very soon. And as always, go Cajuns.